because a lot of things with video are easier and a lot of things are much harder.
Yeah.
Depending on what you're doing, but like it's not difficult to get the basics of what you need for a film. Going to the next level is different, you know what I mean? But like getting the basics to tell a story is not really difficult.
Hello everyone and welcome to Show Love episode 15. My name is Ben. I will be your host, and joining me today in my lounge we have photo and video legend, the YouTube sensation and four-wheel drive connoisseur, Chris
That's
Turner.
fair. Yeah.
Thanks for joining me, man.
How's it going, man?
Good. Nice to finally meet you in person.
Yeah, it's really nice.
I've seen you on the old Facebook groups for...
Yeah, I feel like most relationships are online nowadays.
Yeah.
It's good to actually meet people.
That's what I kind of love about this podcast project too, is like it's literally an excuse for me to just get out there and meet people in person.
Yeah.
When you just otherwise wouldn't. You just chat on Facebook, and it's so much better actually getting to meet people
Totally.
in person. Now today, I mean, like the title of this show is Show Love, a podcast for wedding filmmakers. But today is actually going to be a show for photographers.
Yeah.
So we're going to be basically breaking down kind of the basics of how to take your photography business and basically add video as an offering into it. All the basics of videography, settings, gear, editing, everything. We're going to try cover all of the stuff. And yeah, so I've got Chris along today to talk through especially how Chris has integrated both photo and video into his business, how he upsells video to his photo clients, etc. So Chris, do you want to start us off with a little bit of a background on like when you started with video, how you sort of started incorporating it into your wedding business, and then what's it like now in terms of its impact on your wedding season, the sort of the difference between if you were just doing photo and video?
Sure, yeah. So I started doing video maybe at weddings, maybe about 5 years ago, I think. Just mucking around. Like I was doing video for like, home stuff, and I always enjoyed it, like short films and things like that. But I never thought about it for video. And then I came across issues. You've probably all heard the stories, running into issues with certain videographers and stuff. But, I don't want to give anybody a bad name. Like it was rare. It was a rare occurrence. But when it did happen, it was really kind of painful. And so I was shooting Nikon at the time, which weren't ideal for video. But I went to a wedding and I just shot a film. I just took a whole bunch of footage without the couple knowing about it, and then put it together, and they loved it. I mean, it was terrible. If I look at it now, it was quite bad, But I just really loved it. And then I saw a kind of opening to add a certain kind of film. Like it's not, I decided very early on that it was going to be a really honest, I didn't want to promise it was going to be something that it wasn't going to be. I think if you're a photographer wanting to get into something like that, you really have to downplay what you're getting and deliver something better, you know what I mean? I mean, from there it just kind of really started to take off, I think, because a lot of clients that I come across, they want video, but it's kind of a second thought. Like I find most people either really want video and photos kind of a second, but more commonly, like, people, they've decided they've got a really good photographer, but they want to add a video on, which is where you come on, for like a really epic kind of video. So I found there was really two major splits between that. Someone that wanted someone like yourself to do like a whole separate thing, and they're happy to pay for like a premium service, or someone that just wanted a really nice, really beautiful film, to add on to their photography. And
I think because you're definitely filling that hole in the market of clients who like see the photographers and videographers using the same camera, especially.
Yeah, totally.
Can you just like take some shots for me?
Yeah.
I just want a few shots.
It's definitely
if you can do that, then you can definitely tick that box and add it on and upsell and stuff. So roughly how many of your clients would be Well, first of all, are all of them primarily photo, or do you have like any like primarily video clients?
I do very few video only.
Yeah.
Because the thing is that if I'm doing video only, I'll charge what my photo only price is, which is probably similar to what a pro video guy would charge.
Yeah. And so roughly what's the sort of ratio between photo only and then photo and video couples during the season?
Definitely most get both. Like probably, I'd say probably about 75% of couples get photo and video.
Yeah. Do you find you have to upsell it much, or is
not really?
People asking for it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm probably a little bit different where I have my prices all on my website, which is a decision I made a while ago just to kind of cut down inquiries and stuff like that.
Yeah, I did that too, and it's definitely cut down those.
Yeah, like people that inquire are like, "Are you free? Can we book you?"
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah,
not how much is this, and you just never get a reply.
And you see it just like obviously copy pasted to like
totally
20 other vendors.
Half the time it doesn't even have your name on it. You know? Like they'll send me an email asking, saying, "Hi Ben," you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, I find most people want video.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier about sort of offering a kind of like lower offering, or like setting expectations around what you're offering. And because like a few years ago, I did a kind of like stills to motion workshop where I was trying to teach photographers video. And I think the thing I kind of fell down there with was I tried to do too much. I tried to like get photographers up to the kind of like understanding of video that I was at in terms of like
not gonna happen.
Audio and multicams and cinematic storytelling and all this kind of stuff. And then I've realized now that, okay, like photographers like can add video into their business, but there's there's some training wheels that you can add on first in terms of like just knowing how to like capture some clips, put them in a timeline, add some music.
A lot of it's editing, eh?
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of going to be the focus of the sort of, in terms of like the level at what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah.
Later on in the show, we'll talk a little bit about audio gear, how to incorporate sort of like the vows and ceremony and stuff of the day. But in terms of that first step, like just grabbing some clips throughout the day, making sure you've got a nice variety, and then like putting those together with some music and stuff.
Yeah.
So I kind of think we should probably start with kind of like the basics of video in terms of its difference to photography. And like you can kind of draw a similarity in terms of like how you make albums, in terms of like putting shots together, how you arrange them, because with video there's no like single shot lives alone. Like with video, like I'm often not trying to get like a hero shot.
Yeah, exactly.
You kind of are in the sense that like you're looking for like obviously great shots and you're looking for a nice thumbnail and stuff, but you're never going to just like post one shot to the gram or like anything like that. You've got to sort of have a consistent coverage.
It has to keep your eye, like you have to keep your interest in it, you know.
And you have to have a variety in terms of, because I put out some questions on Facebook about this earlier, and one of the questions was like, what do you shoot? And with video, you definitely have to up the variety in shots, and there's a lot more of like kind of like texture, environmental stuff, and so
I think that's a big difference between what I offer and what you offer as well. Is because we're doing photo and video at the same time. I don't have another separate team coming in to do video, so it's kind of, you're almost getting the same thing as the photo, but moving. You know what I mean? Like when you hire someone like yourself, you're getting a whole different team doing a completely different eye, a different product. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So you, during the day, you're basically sort of like framing up your shots, getting obviously the photo, and then switching over to video mode.
Pretty much, yeah. Like I shoot pretty casually on the day if I'm doing photo only anyway. So I'm not kind of running around doing all sorts. Like my shot count is quite low. You know what I mean? Yeah. So for example, like with the girls getting their makeup done or something like that, I will be, I'll get my photos first, and then a lot of the times I'll just take my photos and then press record and get a little clip, if something cool is happening. But they've got to be, I learned later on, it really they have to be, smiling or interacting. They can't just be standing there like a static, image.
One of the big things because I've attempted photo on weddings, like for friends and stuff, a couple of times. And the big thing I found to sort of going the other way was with video, you can like frame up your shot, hit record, and just wait for the moment to happen.
Yeah.
There's a photo, you got to like capture the moment. You got to capture the good smile. You got to capture the laugh. You got to like, your finger's got to be ready at the right time. Whereas video, you kind of like frame up your nice shot. You think about the lighting and composition, and then you just let it roll.
Yeah. Yeah. And I find that's a thing photographers find easier about doing video. Is like, because a lot of things with video are easier and a lot of things are much harder.
Yeah.
Depending on what you're doing, but like it's not difficult to get the basics of what you need for a film, you know what I mean? Like going to the next level is different, you know what I mean? But like getting the basics to tell a story is not really difficult as much, because of what you said. You can just kind of hit record. Yeah. And again, it depends on the level. A lot of people will just do the whole thing in slow motion. Yeah. Which is what I was doing at the start, but I just found it got a bit boring after a while.
It's certainly videography on easy mode. Yeah, when everything's in slow mo. And we'll talk about slow mo because it is a way to, because another one of the comments was, how do you keep your footage stable? And slow mo is a good way to do that. But in terms of how you said you're sort of taking photos and then you'll just hit record, how are you kind of setting up your camera to make sure that's all doing the right thing? Are you kind of like thinking about like things like shutter speeds and stuff for video? And
not so much.
Have you set up like your sort of ideal like resolution and frame rates and stuff? So that it's just ready to go? So what's the kind of settings that you...
When it comes to when I'm doing video only, for example, I'm much more settings orientated, like probably what you do, like, I'll keep to the kind of, if I'm shooting 25p, I'll try and shoot at 50th of a second. But you can do that, like with my Sonys at the start, for example, they have the custom 1, 2, and 3 on the top of the dials, and I would have that set to like 25p with a certain shutter speed, and and I would switch to that. But I found it was just that time of switching modes was too long. So I, because at the start when I was meeting all my couples, I told them straight up, I said, look, photo is the priority. So there may be some moments in photo that you won't get in video, because I don't want them to come back saying, do you have that? It's all about setting that expectation. So nowadays I just have it set up. It's going to be terrible coming from like a videographer's
but
podcast.
This is good. No, but this is exactly why I wanted to get you on the show, because I just before started going down rabbit holes of like what the right settings are and stuff, and you're like, no, I just hit record, and that's kind of what photographers need to hear in terms of removing those barriers, that fear of how do I start.
It doesn't have to be super complicated. Like generally I'll be shooting an aperture priority or something like that if it's like a crazy, there's a lot going on and I don't have time. So I'll usually have my camera set in like 50p or 60p, 1080p video. So 1080p video with like a 50 or 60 frame rate. And because I find, it's not ideal, but I find you can play back 50p footage that's recorded in 50p on a 25p timeline and not slow mo it, and it's fine.
It's fine. That's because actually, that's what I do. I record like basically the whole day in 50p.
Exactly. So I do the same thing, and it just means that you can have slow mo when you want it, and you don't have to have it when you don't want it. So it just makes it very, very basic. The only thing I tell photographers is that you have to get your white balance right. So
because we're not shooting raw with video.
Exactly. You can't change the white balance.
You're shooting like a super low resolution JPEG that's like crazy compressed.
So if the colors are wrong, it's very, very hard to fix.
Exactly. That's definitely.
So I find, if I'm doing both, I usually shoot manual white balance, and just especially with mirrorless now, you can see it. In the viewfinder.
Exactly.
So if it looks good, and I'll usually try and keep it as accurate as possible, but even a little bit cooler than normal, because I find it's easier to warm stuff up than it is to cool down. But I think that depends on the coloring software you're using and stuff. And I'm not a colorist, that's a whole nother profession.
And I'm pretty lax with white balance on the day. I basically flick between, if it's anything relative to outdoors, it's 5600. And I just kind of keep it there. And then as soon as I go indoors, I'm either like 45 or 32. And like...
if you're in that ballpark, it's fine. But I found at the start when I was doing auto white balance, it would change like halfway through a scene.
A shot?
That's just like...
that's when you
can't use it.
You pan like to grass and everything to magenta. No.
And then you go back to a face and it's like pink.
So auto white balance is definitely... In terms of settings...
That's a big
for
one.
video is definitely a big one.
Yeah.
Don't do auto white balance.
Yeah.
It probably shouldn't be for photos anyway, just because it's going to make your
Nah,
culling and editing a nightmare.
Exactly,
right?
yeah. So I don't. The reason I use auto white balance most of the time if I'm doing photo only is because, again, being on mirrorless, I can see if it's really bad.
Yeah.
But I'll often change it to, because the Sonys in particular go quite cool, I find, if like when they shouldn't be.
Yeah.
So usually I'll shoot in manual just because it looks good in the viewfinder, and it's like distracting if it looks bad. So
Cool. To kind of like backtrack a bit on what we're talking about in case we lost some people in terms of like 50p, 25p.
yeah,
We're going to do a real quick breakdown on
Sweet.
frame rates and slow-mo.
yeah,
So for anyone who doesn't know, video is actually just lots of photos. And effectively, it's lots of photos like showing like one after the other. And the point at which that breaks down for the human eye, when that illusion disappears and you start to see the individual photos, between each other, is around 25 photos every single second.
so it starts looking stuttery below that.
It starts looking stuttery below that. So when we talk about 25p, 25 frames per second, that's the kind of like minimum amount of frames you need for it to be an illusion of motion.
Yeah,
And when you start to record above that, say 50p, double 25, what you can then do is take those 50 frames, slow them down to 25, and you're taking that time and stretching it out.
yeah.
But you're still left with 25 frames to keep the illusion of movement. It's just now slower. So that's what we're talking about in terms of 25p versus 50p.
Yeah. Another way I like to put it as well is the 25p is quite often, or 25p is quite often like cinematic films and stuff, where, if you're watching like a rugby game, they'll often shoot at like 60 or 100.
Yeah.
And it looks weird. If you're on the right TV and the right settings, it looks too smooth.
Yeah.
So it's because they're playing it back in that rate as well. But yeah.
Yeah, and because the reason it was 25 goes back to the days of film. Where basically, they're trying to be as economical as possible with how many frames of film they're burning through.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's why they're just trying to make it as slow as possible.
Yeah.
So you're not wasting as much film.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. One of the other quick questions on the Facebook group was, besides settings, was around gear. And are you bringing any extra kind of gear on the day to sort of make your kit kind of more video ready? So maybe a microphone or something?
Yeah, just audio really is the only thing I add. So I have a fair bit of audio equipment, like I have a Tascam recorder and I have some wireless lapels and stuff like that. So I take all of it just because you never know. Like audio is quite tricky, and you never know what you're going to come across. Like whether you can plug into the venue system or you have to mic everybody up if you want to get clean audio or wind noise. There's so many things to think about.
Yeah, audio is a whole nother
Get to that later.
realm of things. It's kind of like photographers who get into like off-camera flash and stuff.
Yeah.
It's just like a whole nother
totally
ball game.
And audio is something that's like, if you're going to do audio, it has to be really, really clean.
Yeah.
Like bad audio is much, like if you have a video that has average quality but really good audio, it's fine.
Yeah.
But if you have a really awesome video quality and really crappy audio, you can't watch it.
Yeah, totally.
So you've either got to do it right or don't do it.
Exactly. And so there's definitely that sort of next sort of learning curve for audio. Obviously more investment with gear because you need different stuff. It's almost like lenses. You need different stuff, different types of microphones for different types of applications and recording.
And even editing, you've got to choose the right music and know how to tell a story with adding audio in it. It's different.
So we'll talk about that a bit later in the show for anyone who sort of feels like they're ready to take that jump. But besides audio, because in terms of equipment, one of the other questions was stabilizing the footage.
Yeah.
So like, do you use like a camera strap to kind of like keep things steady?
Yeah. So I use the not leather camera strap, the dual harness, whatever. Or the Moneymaker, same thing. And I'll quite often do exactly that and I'll hold my camera out, with tension on the strap, just to kind of, and just kind of move like that. I try and stay away from panning and stuff for the most part, unless it's like a detail shot or something. But just really stable footage, and I usually just forget about trying to walk or something because it just doesn't. It just looks bad.
Looks too bouncy and stuff. So as long as you can, sort of add some tension with a camera strap, or just
Yeah,
bring your
or bring your
elbows in.
arms.
Bring your elbows in.
As many
is
points
good.
of contact
as many
as
points
possible.
Yeah, exactly. Will just help to add. You basically just don't want to have your camera out in space with your wrists
Yeah.
doing all the work.
And I do kind of, it does depend on the wedding and the situation and who my second shooter is and stuff, because I always have a second shooter. But like, I use Ethan a lot, obviously. And when we're together, I'll quite often take like just a cheap electronic gimbal, like not a big one, like a Zion Crane or something like that. But I'll only use that for the sunset shoot. So generally, when you go off a sunset, I'll just be doing photos, and I'll just get Ethan to follow me around with the gimbal.
Yeah.
Not, he won't be taking any photos. So that's kind of where you split it up.
Yeah.
But other than the gimbal sometimes and the audio gear, my camera equipment's the same. So I use the same cameras, same lenses, which if people don't know is I use the A7R3 and the most of the time on a 24mm 1.4 and the 55mm 1.8. And I just use the 85 for that ceremony. But that doesn't change whether it's photo or video.
Yeah. In terms of video, just to sort of like sidetrack a second.
Yeah.
What are you recording in terms of color space?
Like
are you recording
color profiles?
Yeah, like are you recording like S-Log? Like,
yes, nah.
No?
So when I'm doing both, this again goes to where I'm doing both or whether I'm just doing video. So if I'm doing both, then I just record standard because it's, again, you have to change modes to go from like picture to like S-Log 2 or something like that, and it's just, it takes too long. So I just shoot neutral. I usually have it in neutral and I turn the contrast right down.
That's what
Because it doesn't affect the photos at all because it's raw, but if you shoot, you can't shoot S-Log and do photos because you have to expose differently.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what I was going to ask, because I've noticed on actually both Sony but particularly Canon, the kind of like flat EOS kind of profile. Way too contrasty and way too sharp. It's heaps of like in-camera sharpening.
Totally, you've got to turn that down.
Yeah, so in terms of like just going back to like camera settings and stuff, the big ones is the stuff that doesn't affect your raw files. So like keep the kind of like profile the same, but just like turn all the contrast down. Experiment with the saturation. It depends on which bodies, how it deals with saturation, but sharpness
that'll be camera dependent.
Yeah, camera dependent. Like do some experimenting on that, but sharpness is a biggie. Turn the sharpness.
Yeah,
right
always
down.
do sharpening in post.
Yeah, always do sharpening in post, because the in-camera sharpening, I mean, you can't remove it, and it looks terrible. Yeah, especially on the Canons. I've found that in-camera sharpening on the Canons.
The same.
Yeah. Sorry, little aside, just because I know from having my Canons sometimes like accidentally in that kind of like default color profile, and I record some shots and it's like way too contrasty, way too like over sharp. That's definitely.
And for people that don't know about what we're talking, like a lot of people don't know what log is, right?
Yeah.
Like, when we're talking about S-Log 2 and C-Log, that's just the really super. It just looks basically grey with no color. It's like an inbuilt profile into the camera, so.
It's basically it's basically a workaround because we don't have RAW.
Exactly. Yeah.
So basically, like you're trying to record with as little contrast and saturation and sharpness as possible to keep as much information as possible, so that you can then add that back in post, because we don't have RAW, which is a pain in the ass.
Oh, actually, one more thing on gear. Maybe we'll get to it later, but I do have now, as I added another Sony, which I use for the ceremony. And I have an Atomos Ninja V to record that, just because it takes that 30-minute record time out. So I can just set it recording for as long as I want. But that is a more advanced, more expensive thing to get into.
But that's a good thing to keep in mind. And we'll dive into those kinds of 30-minute record limits and stuff when we're talking about recording ceremonies and speeches in full. But is there any other kind of differences you've found in terms of like, obviously you mentioned at sunset splitting off and doing some gimbal stuff or some sort of like more like video centric, might sort of have one person focused on video, one person focused on photo. Is there any other parts during the day that you're adjusting? Either you're not getting on video and you're just getting on photo, or you're getting on video and not getting on photo? anything like that?
I do find when you start, I mean, me anyway, when I started doing videos, you know, like the first 20 films I did, I took way more footage than I ever needed. You know, you use hardly anything.
Yeah.
So whereas now I'm quite a bit picky. I only do stuff that's actually, you know, like I said, like emotional moments or something like that. But yeah, it's really half the reason I use a second shooter all the time is just because it's kind of a dance around what you're doing. So like I'll direct my second shooter for the ceremony, for example. I'll tell Ethan, you know, just do video at this part and I'll do photo.
Yeah.
Like the first kiss, for example, I'll have Ethan standing next to me doing video only and I'll do photo only.
Yeah.
So, you know, a way to get around that is obviously just have a camera on a tripod recording the entire ceremony, but it doesn't always work out like that. So you have to kind of just think, because you don't need two people getting the first kiss on photo, you know what I mean? So it's just about splitting it up and just using your head and figuring it out ahead of time of what you want. And we do, it's kind of funny, but me and Ethan have this kind of call sign. If something changes through the ceremony, I'll be like video or photo.
Nice.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's things change and you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So I'll just look at him and just be like video, and he'll know to do video for that scene.
Yeah.
So it is kind of something that you know, me and Ethan are obviously really good mates, and we shoot together a lot, and he knows exactly how I roll. So having that kind of relationship there does help. But it's definitely something you need to brief your second shooter with if you're going to use one.
Yeah.
You can do this by yourself. Like I've done it before, photo and video on my own, but it's much more difficult.
Yeah, totally. And because one of my earliest episodes of this podcast, I was talking with Patty Laguerra. Because she does photo and video, and she said she just doesn't do solo anymore.
Yeah, it's just too much stress.
Too much work, too much stress.
I wouldn't advise it unless you're kind of just starting out and mucking around.
Yeah.
But the problem is when you start missing photo moments, that gets into dangerous territory.
Yeah, totally. Definitely keeping that priority in your head of like, you're a photographer first and you're adding video.
Yeah, like I've had moments when, because obviously during the morning it's usually me by myself and Ethan by himself with the boys. And there's moments like, for example, when the dad walks in and sees the bride, you know, you have to be very, very careful with that. You don't want to miss that. That's a very important photo. So quite often with that moment, I'll have my photo camera set up and I'll just have my other camera hanging off recording and I'll just pick it up and hold it side by side. So it's a little bit of getting used to, but you know, like I said at the start, when I'm in the meetings with my clients, I'm telling them, you know, there may be moments you won't get on video because photo is a priority, and that's why it's a lower price, you know, and I'm not paying for someone else to come along and do this as well. And I'm happy to do that, but you know, then I'd either hire someone else or I just recommend someone like yourself to take care of it, you know, because I don't want people being disappointed. You know, I want every client to be really happy.
But that's a good little tip too, in terms of, it's because a lot of photographers dual wield. And having like, I guess, like feeling as comfortable with those settings and switching things around as you would with photo. So you can do that for those sort of like high pressure point moments.
Exactly. Yeah.
You can have one camera on photo, you just, you know,
and just have the other one rolling.
Just rolling.
Just press record, and then when you need it, all you have to do is lift it up.
Yeah. Autofocus is great on most camera these days. You can like tap the screen for stuff.
Totally.
So
any new Canon or Sony mirrorless is going to be fine.
Yeah, totally.
Even a lot of DSLRs, but you know.
But I like that in terms of, because there are moments in the day where you can't like take a photo, then switch it over and do video.
Yeah.
So either
they happen within 4 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many moments like that, and they're kind of the best moments of the day almost. So yeah, either two cameras yourself or you and your second shooter having, I liked that little like V and thing.
That works really well.
Yeah, that's cool.
And we like, sometimes we do it like, I'll judge it, every wedding is different. So like I have a wedding in Queenstown in 2 weeks time, when I have a third coming along to help with video, because it's going to be a really big wedding, and you know, it's important that that wasn't really in the budget, but it, you know, it's not going to cost me a lot, and it sets my mind at ease, and you know what I mean?
Totally.
But there is moments like on a standard Auckland wedding where I'll take, you know, me and Ethan will both go to the boys first, and then we'll both go to the girls in the morning, depending on what's happening and how many people are in the situation. So you just kind of have to judge it, and it only really comes from experience, I think, just by doing it. But I think the biggest thing is just setting it up safely that you can do it without screwing up your main product.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And setting that expectation, not pretending, I don't pretend that they're going to get, a really high-end videographer coming along and doing a whole separate film, because it's not what it is.
It's a supplementary product.
Exactly, yeah.
To the photos, absolutely. Yeah.
And it's just cheaper for them because, like I said, if I was doing video only, it would be the same $5,000 or whatever it is if I was doing photo only.
Yeah.
And people don't want to pay that generally unless they really want video, So it's because I'm already there, I can do it cheaper.
Yeah. And because, like we were saying at the beginning of the show, couples do want that.
Yeah.
A lot of their priority. They want the photos, but they were like, we just want a little bit of a video just
a real nice 5-6 minute film.
Yeah. Just nice and simple. Absolutely.
A lot of people don't even want audio. Like you don't a lot of people do, but it's not
a necessity.
People don't think about it.
You can definitely jump in without dealing with audio first. So you can just do footage in.
And I have tricks we can talk about later with the audio as well for people.
Yeah, nice. Now, post-production.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like we've sort of covered most of the stuff for on the day. I like that it was a lot more simple than I was kind of expecting. It was a lot more just hit record.
Yeah.
And there's some little tricks around how to capture those high pressure moments, but
and this is this is assuming that you're a decent photographer.
Obviously, yeah.
If you're gonna, find good photographers are generally good videographers once you get your head around the different techniques and technical things.
Yeah, exactly. Because
this is just using your eye.
It's the same principles of composition and light and everything, and knowing a wedding like the back of your hand. It's
I've had just give me a real quick example.
Yeah.
One of our friends, I think we probably all know her from the group, we shot a wedding down in Palmerston North, and she was my second shooter, and it was just going to be photo only, and then the couple added video at the really last minute, and I told the second shooter on the day that we're doing video, and just gave her a 5-minute crash course, and she was a really good photographer, and she done fine with the video, but it was a really basic, there was no audio, it was just kind of, you know what I mean? So a really experienced, high-quality photographer can do it. Yeah. It's just a few things to learn.
It's a really minimal amount of stuff to just get you over that line to just start recording.
But coming from scratch, totally different story.
Yeah, totally. But now to dive into post-production and editing, which is, it's certainly weird because I feel like a lot of photographers get to that point where they're like, cool, I can take some clips. I can, I'm been mucking around with my camera, but there's this whole other software that I've never touched, this whole other process. What would you feel would be the easiest way to kind of walk photographers through just the basics of starting to deal with Premiere, Final Cut, that sort of thing?
Honestly, I think you can learn most of it on YouTube.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really great tutorials on YouTube. But I think keeping it basic and staying away from crazy fades and that kind of gets a bit tacky. Excuse me. But yeah, I think just jumping straight in, you've got to just dive in and try and make stuff.
Yeah.
But YouTube's a really great place to start. There's a lot of really good tutorials. In terms of software themselves, I would, everybody has a different opinion and doesn't mean I'm right, but if I was on Mac, I'd be using Final Cut. No doubt about it. Yeah. And if you're on PC, you can't have Final Cut, obviously, so it's either really DaVinci Resolve or Premiere. And both are pretty complicated. Final Cut's definitely easier to learn, I think.
Yeah, and the other thing I'd say with Final Cut, because a lot of photographers edit on a MacBook.
Yeah.
And Final Cut is way less hardware intensive.
Oh, it's very fast. I can edit 4K drone footage on my 2017 MacBook.
Yeah.
Easily with no stuttering, and on my $5,000 beast of a gaming computer on Premiere, it stutters. So it's really optimized.
So I think if you are Mac based, especially if you're on a laptop, I would say definitely dive in with Final Cut.
Yeah, totally.
It's just
especially for what we do.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I use Final Cut on a Mac Pro desktop, and video is my main bread and butter.
Yeah. Well, it's a professional.
Yeah,
Like, people think it's not a professional software, but it totally is.
Yeah, but I find I edit faster in it and stuff. So
And shortcut keys are really important.
Shortcut keys are really great in it. So yeah, obviously if you pick PC, I haven't actually used DaVinci, but
I've had a really good deep dive into it lately with the new one, and it's way better than it was, but it's still not, I'd probably rather use it than Premiere at the moment. Like Premiere is just really buggy and crashes all the time, and it's just really frustrating. And I don't think it's anything to do with Mac or PC. It's just Adobe.
Just Adobe. There's kind of a comfort with Premiere in terms of it's still Adobe in terms of your Adobe suite.
Yeah.
Like if you've got the full Adobe suite and you don't have to pay for Premiere.
Yeah. But then a lot of photographers only have the Lightroom and Photoshop thing. So it's like another $30 a month or something to get Premiere.
Yeah.
But and DaVinci's free. For the main, so, that's all you need for that version.
Yeah. So
Final Cut has a lot of good plugins and stuff as well.
Yeah. I mean, I made the switch from Premiere to Final Cut. It took me about a month to kind of really get back up to speed, but yeah, I love it now. So
that was the main. Like I was always PC, and the only reason I bought a Mac is so I could use Final Cut pretty much.
Yeah. No, it's really good in terms of the kind of. Obviously, like we were saying, you can find a lot of this on YouTube, but like bare bones elevator pitch on like what, just from a high level perspective, what's involved in video editing. No matter what your software, you basically have a main kind of timeline.
Yeah, right. Okay.
You kind of like put all your clips into.
Yeah.
And they kind of like flow from left to right.
Yeah.
And it goes from like one to the other to the other, and then.
Yeah, just cutting it up.
Yeah, usually what you then do is just put music below that, any kind of audio like music or...
Yep, time it to the music kind of stuff.
Yeah, so...
I do usually pick music first.
Yep.
So I'll pick music that is the right kind of time that I need for the whole film.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is what you do, but music is so important for setting the mood of the day. So if they want a really nice romantic film, I'll pick them because it's so hard to edit and then choose a song. You got to kind of
because especially for, I mean, any kind of editing, you're editing to the music, but especially when you're just doing like footage and music, you can import all your footage, start to look at it, start to sort of get an idea of what the vibe you want. But then you can just go hunting for a song, and then you want to edit to those beats.
And then it's a really good base to start with. And I would say as well, something I learned was, because I was saying at the start, when I started doing this, I was doing mostly slow-mo, no audio, just with stuff like that. But if you don't have audio from the day, you really have to have a song with lyrics.
Yes.
Like you can't have, if you just have a sort of cinematic film,
piano
exactly, with no audio as well, it's just boring. It's just very hard to watch.
So if you're not doing any audio from the day, like Val's speeches, then song with lyrics.
Totally.
Otherwise you can use these like cinematic ambient kind of tracks.
And you can get them from like Epidemic Sound or Music Bed or whatever. Pay a subscription, and then you're not getting stung.
What do you use for your music?
I have Epidemic. I think it's Epidemic Sound. They done me a deal for the YouTube channel, so I was like, why not?
Sweet, nice.
But Music Bed's really good.
I mean, I use Music Bed. I use it enough that I can pay the subscription, and it makes sense for me.
I'd probably rather use Music Bed. I think it's better.
It's certainly it's the most expensive, but it's the best.
Totally.
Depends on how much you want to invest in the video side of things and stuff. But Epidemic Sound, Music Bed, Artlist. I don't know. Have you tried Artlist?
I heard of it. I haven't ever used it. I think there's a few.
Probably shouldn't be mentioning platforms that I haven't used, but
I think Music Bed or Epidemic is really good.
Stay away from Premium Beat.
Oh, totally.
That's if you want to make like a super cheesy 90-second corporate video. You can use Premium Beat, but stay away from there.
And I find a lot of people are just downloading songs. Like they'll download like an Ed Sheeran song or something.
Don't do that.
The problem is, one, it's the same. Obviously it's a different level, but it's the same as someone using my photos and not bloody crediting me for it. It would piss you off. And secondly, if they share it, if your couple goes to share it on Facebook, it'll just get blocked anyway.
And I think people kind of know, but just writing like song by Ed Sheeran isn't enough.
No, that's not cool.
You can't like create it that way and it'd be fine.
And I think we lose because they're so famous and have all this money, like it's okay, but it's really not.
So like, music licensing is part of the deal.
Yeah.
When you're doing video, plenty of websites, Music Bed if you want to spend some more money, or Epidemic.
I think Epidemic is only like $10-15 a month.
Yeah, and it's I did a little dive into it a few months back, and it is pretty good.
Yeah,
it's pretty good. So it'll definitely get you started.
Yeah, totally.
If you don't want to jump on Music Bed,
and you can search for them by, you know, you can tick whether it needs to have lyrics or the amount of length it has to be, so you can narrow it down a lot.
Yeah,
you know.
That's the good thing about all those sites is those search functionalities.
Yeah.
You don't have to know what song you want, just like what kind of feel you want.
Yeah. But so with the timeline wise, I will usually pick my song to the feel of the day. Like if my couple are more of a kind of excited, happy, you know, outgoing couple, I won't usually pick a really slow romantic song. You know, I'll choose something that's more fun and beat and happy, and you know, and then I'll start cutting it together. And at the start, again, you know, you kind of just evolve as you do it. But at the start, I was just putting it all in and doing it, you know, by time.
Yeah.
And again, I found that's fine, especially when you're starting. I'd probably recommend that because it's just easier.
Yeah.
But you can really start advancing when you start, like what probably, you know, what you do more as well is kind of, you mix it up. It doesn't always have to be in timeline. You can start with the sunset shoot, you know, and just add different bits of the day in and stuff. But I think that's where the art really comes into it as well.
Yeah. I think I agree that like easy first step is just chronological order, taking the best bits, because with video editing you have your whole clip and you just like take sections out of it. You'd like have your in point, your out point, and that bit gets put in the timeline. And you can just make a video with start of the day to the end of the day, cut to the beat of the music.
And every couple I've done that for has loved it.
They loved it because
they don't know what else to expect.
Exactly. So you don't feel like that's not a good place to start. That's a great place to just start with video editing. And then I found like an easy level up would be to just focus on the intro. So like pick either a different song or like a short part of the song, and do a little 1 minute bit at the start of the film that you really put all your effort into, all the best shots, really make it sing, and then
just fade into
and then just let the rest of the almost like having a trailer for the film at the start, and then roll into the rest of the film.
And then you can do the rest of it in chronological order.
Yeah, because a lot of people just watch the first few bits of the video and go, cool, that looks great. Yeah, I'll hire them. So.
Especially when you do that on. I'd say probably not a lot of people, you know, because I have some videos on my website. Most of them would do that. Watch, you know, the first half because it's not their day. They don't relate to it. They don't care.
Yeah.
So when you can make a stranger watch an entire film that had nothing to do with that wedding, you've done something right. You know what I mean? Like it's the same I find with my YouTube videos that you're getting someone to watch a whole video is a whole different story.
Yeah, totally.
You know.
Yeah, so once you've gone past just literally clips chronologically in the timeline, just focus on that first minute or so.
Yeah.
Really make
smash that
first minute. I mean, I do that in my films, even though mine are obviously like quite complex with lots of different audio elements and stuff. I still focus on making that first minute and a half the like highlight
really
of
heavy,
the whole. Really all the heavy editing and stuff goes into that first.
And that's what really sets off the emotions of the people watching it and stuff like that.
You get the buy-in because as soon as your brain goes, this is a great video, and then you kind of your brain's already decided it's a good video.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it kind of the pressure's off for the rest of it. So that's sort of a bit of a life hack there.
Yeah.
Any other kind of sort of tips? I know you've actually got a really great video on the basics of using Final Cut particularly.
Yeah.
On your YouTube channel, which would be great to link below. But is there any other kind of like tips in terms of just that editing process, that really bare bones editing process of importing clips, making selects, putting it in a timeline, adding music, hitting export?
Yeah, I think being really organized is really important. Like I'll have all my files from my camera in a folder, all my files from Ethan's camera in a folder, and then I'll usually go through once I've imported. I'll import all my footage, and then I'll split it up into six. So like keyword, like, you know, girls getting ready, boys getting ready, ceremony, just so it's really easy, because it's difficult to go back and find a bit of the day that you want to add if it's not organized. So having everything really well organized and labeled is a really good start.
Yeah.
You know, with folders or keywords or however. I think you've done a video on it too, eh?
Yeah, I've got a video on how I section out the day into keywords and parts of the day.
And I think I was pretty similar to what you were doing. I think I learned some stuff from yours as well. So being really organized and consistent with stuff like that.
Because actually, that was something I did want to mention is, regardless of the editing software you choose to dive into, there's one setting that you really need to like kind of switch off, which comes default. I know it comes default in Final Cut. I'm not sure if it's similar in Premiere, but basically how Final Cut comes sort of fresh out of the box is when you input your clips, it basically copies all of that data into Final Cut. So you go into the settings and you basically tell either Final Cut or
leave files in place.
Yeah, leave files in place.
Yeah.
That's just going to save you literally half the storage space. So you want to make sure your file structure in terms of the actual folders and Finder or Windows.
Yeah, I'll have that all organized in folder and Finder before I even import stuff.
So you do all your organizing in the actual file structure.
Yeah. And then I import that,
and then
one
you
folder.
Import all that.
Yeah.
You tell whatever your software is, Final Cut, whatever, to keep those files where they are. Don't copy them into the Final Cut timeline, like into the Final Cut project.
Especially Final, because you can never find them. You don't know where they are.
Yeah. So just that, because that would be a huge thing to just be doubling your data every time you input footage. So make sure you turn that setting off.
And I usually try and edit with the internal drive if possible.
Yeah.
Like I do use external drives, but I use the SSD. Yeah. Samsung T5 SSD external drive. So they're really fast. But if you're working on like a normal hard drive for video, it can be quite taxing on the computer.
Yeah. Because I edit on a big RAID system.
Yeah.
I've got
that'd be all right.
Yeah.
That'd be different to using like a lacy normal external drive over like USB 3 or something. You know?
And actually the hard drive I do use uses SSD to kind of cache and right. So it actually is kind of using a bit of SSD to keep this speed up. Yeah,
like you can do it, but it's just fast. You know, the faster it is, the better the experience.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's probably. I mean, the file sizes are big, but I think one of the big things photographers will like see when they jump over to video, especially if they're recording those higher resolutions, is the file sizes get
huge,
ginormous. Like I record maybe 400 to 500 gigs a wedding.
Yeah. I think they can. Well, I think the Canon files are a lot larger than the Sony ones because of the whatever compression they use or something.
It's a lot less compressed. Yeah. And then kind of to finish off that whole post production thing, exporting. There's kind of presets built into most softwares, but is there anything you've found either in Final Cut or Premiere in terms of your export settings, just to make sure it's looking as nice as possible?
Yeah.
For upload.
Honestly, I just export it like H.264.
Yeah.
But there is a better, like quite often nowadays, you'd probably know, but there's another setting you can use. It's like really much higher quality, but the file is huge.
Yeah.
I'll usually do both. And just so I have a really good master copy.
Yeah.
And then, the other one, because once I've got the master copy, I don't usually keep the raw footage for the video.
Yeah.
Like, I'll leave it for like a few months after the couple have received it.
Yeah,
because it's just so much file size. Like keeping the photos is fine, but, I don't want a couple of 100 gigs worth of video footage.
Yeah, totally. So I think the kind of lossless sort of master file is ProRes.
That's the one.
So exporting one version of your final kind of finished film in ProRes as you kind of like store it away. That's the kind of the highest quality version.
Yeah.
But you don't upload that to...
No. So I'll do another one, H.264, and upload that.
And then in Premiere, it asks you to specify what bitrate and stuff.
Yeah.
I found around 15
at least,
seconds is at least. Anything more than that, it's...
and anything lower than that, you start getting like artifacting and choppiness and stuff.
Yeah. So you don't want to like push it too much to drop the file size down. The file sizes are going to be probably a few gig for a kind of 5-6 minute film.
Yeah.
If your file sizes are looking about that, then you're probably in the right ballpark.
Yeah.
Something I did find recently, which is a bit of a hack, is YouTube in particular, but I think Facebook as well, actually has 2 different encoding codecs.
Okay.
There's a legacy old one that's
Yeah.
for like up to HD, and if you upload a file in HD, it uses the old codec, and it's more compressed.
Right.
If you upload a file in 4K, it uses this new fancy codec, which makes it look
Really?
way nicer.
So you're probably better off upscaling to 4K.
So, so basically, if you record in 1080 and whatever, edit in 1080, export it 4K in H.264 for the web upload, and it makes it way nicer. Yeah.
I do that with my neck for my comeback for YouTube. I've made a video in like 6 weeks.
I've been waiting, man. Come on.
Yeah.
But obviously, I think in terms of those like number crunching specifics, YouTube, like figure out those.
Yeah, you can learn all this thing.
Yeah,
on YouTube.
like this kind of podcast is great to just like walk you through like this is what you need to do. Go and look up the actual like numbers and specifics of like those settings. But
and when I found when you're trying to learn something like this, like this is a general skill for any kind of learning. But I'll if I'm trying to learn something new, I'll break it down into sections and try and then I'll research each one of those sections rather than trying to learn everything all at once.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'll learn specifically about exporting rather than how to edit a video. I'll be like how to import, how to cut, how to export. You know,
totally. Cool. One of the other questions was around any effects or plugins you kind of use or avoid.
Yeah.
Do you have anything you kind of go to in terms of plugins and effects?
I don't use a lot of effects. Like I do. So I don't know if this is the right way to do it. You might know as well, but like people with fading and stuff. Like I'll generally only use a fade or like a transitional kind of effect if I'm going from like one scene to another scene. So like from going from the boys getting ready to the girls getting ready, in between that I'll fade it.
Yeah.
Otherwise it's just a clean cut.
Yeah. That's a pretty easy rule of thumb to keep to. But you don't need to.
I just looked at movies and like documentaries and that's that's what it seemed to happen. So I just did that.
I would say just like use a light touch on all those transitions.
Yeah, don't go too heavy-handed with it. And like people go light leaks all over the place, and it's like it's good for certain scenes, like sunset going into changing a transition or something. But like you don't want to be throwing that stuff all over the place. It just gets too much. Yeah. And like especially with weddings, stay away from that kind of YouTuber, zoom in and stuff like fly effects and stuff.
Yeah.
And the other thing I do is I do buy some kind of really nice title. Effects and stuff like that. So I'm not using like tacky, like you don't want to be using like Comic Sans for your entry titles. You know what I mean?
Totally.
So I'll usually invest $30-$40 in like a nice pack of title sequences.
Yeah, and you can get those from like Envato or motion effects.
Motion effects. I've got a few of those.
Getting mine from lately.
I buy a lot of my YouTube ones for that. From them. But good titles. Really really slim on the effects actually for me.
I think one person asked about warp stabilizer, and I would say
it's hard.
It's hard, but you
sometimes
can use
it works really well.
And I do use it, but I use it for basically just when I'm trying to keep the camera stable and I'm trying to like fake a tripod shot.
Then I'll use it.
Then you use it.
If you use it for like panning or walking, it
even just any
good.
kind of handheld. Or even when stuff's moving fast in the frame, like if you're still but your main subject is filling the frame and moving, the software might think that the person is meant to be still, and the whole background will warp around.
It looks
do weird
just
shit.
terrible. So, you're better off being shaky.
I think use it for like establishing shots, like shots of like venues or details, like that you want to be really stable, and the camera is still, and you just want to like iron out those little jitters.
That's pretty much exactly what I do.
But that's kind of where I draw the line at using it.
But I would say to people, if you're coming into it or you're looking at upgrading gear, I think it is important to have either a camera that has sensor stabilization or lenses that have stabilization. If you have no stabilization, the issue with not having stabilization at all is the micro jitters. Like just the really little movements that you can't take that kind of stuff out. with, I mean, you can do that with like something like warp stabilizer, but when you're doing that for every clip, it just takes hours.
Because like my C200 that I'm recording the wide shot on
Yeah.
doesn't have any stabilization, and the lens doesn't either.
Yeah.
But the thing weighs as much as
heavy.
like 5Ds.
Yeah.
And their weight is what keeps it
Exactly.
stable.
Yeah. So like I found that too. Like when I have my Atmos Ninja rig with the cage and all that, it's really easy to handhold.
Yeah.
But when you got a little mirrorless camera, it's impossible to get those jitters out.
Absolutely.
So adding weight is a really good thing.
Yeah. Right on. Okay. Well, in terms of like the kind of the basics of footage and music, capturing, cutting, exporting, I kind of feel like we've covered most of that. Certainly enough for people to then dive into YouTube to find the specifics on what they want around settings and learning softwares and stuff like that. But to kind of like round off the show with a little bit of that next step in terms of adding in audio, do you want to walk us through your kind of like audio kit, how you incorporate audio on the day in terms of recording it, and then we'll jump into how to incorporate that in the editing.
Sweet, yeah. So I have, in terms of gear, I have a Tascam DR44WL. I think I'm pretty sure that's what it is. I tried to memorize it on my way, but it's basically just a handheld recorder with the display on it, same as like a Zoom H5 or something.
Yeah.
And I also have a shotgun mic, which a shotgun mic is just one that goes on top of your camera, and which I use for something specific, which I'll get to in a minute. And then I have some Rode, the new little...
Oh, the little Go.
Yeah, the wireless Go.
Yeah, wireless Go, yeah.
Yeah, so I have some other ones that I don't use anymore, but those ones are fine and they're cheap. So wireless lapels. More often, like if the venue has audio and they're using their mics, I'll usually try and plug into that because it's usually better quality.
Yeah.
But I will put a mic on the Groom as well, just in case for like backup or something. But I find audio is really tricky because one, most people don't know how to talk into a mic.
Yeah.
So they're either way too close or way too far away and echoey.
Yeah.
And the celebrants have no idea about audio usually.
Yeah.
So you're relying on other people to do it, and it doesn't always work.
Yeah.
So promising audio is a tricky one. Like,
you got to have backups, and
you got to have backups, and you got to have, if it's windy, you got no hope.
Yeah. I've stopped relying on house systems.
Yeah.
Because they're just, one, I can never guarantee I can get to one.
Yeah.
Because I often like build in their sound system into the back of a wall with no way to access it.
Yeah. And I don't want you playing with it.
And then you're playing with it and all that sort of shit. So
and a lot of time you just get static through it and it's just unusable. You can't hear it through the audio system. But when you get into the computer, like the whole thing's screwed.
Yeah. So I've actually started, you can get these really thin profile little Sony recorders.
Yeah.
And I actually just attach that to the handheld mic.
Yeah,
so wherever the handheld mic goes, my audio recorder goes, but it's not linked to whether the batteries in the microphone die or any stupid thing like that.
Wireless
happens.
cutting out. So that happens all the time.
I've found, whilst it's relatively low tech, it's actually been the most reliable. It's the most reliable system I've found, and it's certainly low on kit. It's one little recorder.
I might try that actually.
That you can just like either tape to, and if it's windy, you can like tuck it under the little wind fluff of the microphone. So that was pretty well. It's a pretty simple way to make sure you get audio. The only thing you got to rely on is people using the microphone.
Yeah. And with the Tascam, you got to make sure you have the right cables and just have a whole bunch of adapters because you can some systems have like RCA, some have 1/4 inch, some have 1/2 inch, or not 1/2 inch, 3.5.
Yeah.
There's all different plugs. So if you have a whole range of adapters and stuff that you can pull out of a bag is really helpful.
Yeah.
But when all else fails, this is something I do a lot now. I'll record the ceremony. If it goes well, perfect. If it doesn't go well, usually when I take my couples off for sunset, I will have them sit down together and read the vows to each other then.
Nice.
And then I'll use usually the shotgun mic, but it has to be quite close,
Close, yeah.
like a meter, no more than a meter away from them, kind of thing.
But you're not in the ceremony, so that's fine.
Yeah,
You can just get as close as
you can
need to
go
them.
somewhere quiet.
Yeah.
Typically outside. You don't want to be in a room that's really echoey. And I find it's a really nice moment for them. So they really appreciate that kind of stuff, like that whole experience. I think wedding photographers forget about the experience of the day. It has to be a good experience.
Yeah.
So it's a really nice moment where we can just go and sit away from all the guests and all the craziness, just for 15 minutes, take some photos, and then sit down and read the vows to each other again, or a letter, and I'll record that and use that audio over the video instead. And the other thing I do is I'll quite often get the couple, more often than not, they write each other letters in the morning anyway.
Yeah.
So if they do that, I just say, don't read it until I get there, and then we'll go off to a private room and you can read it. You don't have to read it to the camera, but I just want that audio, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's usually a more emotional moment than the ceremony.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of couples' vows aren't personal either. They're just kind of like, copy back the book.
Yeah, or they're saying the exact same thing. Or,
and it's just kind of pointless putting that in the video. So,
Yeah.
Writing the letter to each other and recording that in the morning, or, re-recording the vows later at sunset or something is a really, really good workaround to get really good clean audio and another scene for like an A-roll or something.
Yeah. Yeah. And because they're kind of I would say the first step for incorporating audio into your film is just have the audio as like separate from the video.
Yeah.
You can
Totally.
you just use the microphones and the recorders to like record ceremony and speeches.
Yeah.
And
just
then
duck the music audio.
Yeah, you can just drop the music at certain points and take those bits of audio almost like they're video clips, and you just pop them below the footage as you need. There's the next stage of like syncing audio to video, but that's probably above the pay grade of what we're
I do that a lot now, but only because I've
you've been doing it for a few years now.
Yeah.
So I think that'll come down the road when you've got multiple
Probably something
cameras.
to look into later.
Yeah, it's relatively easy to find on YouTube and stuff. Looking at
And Final Cut pretty much does it automatically.
I auto sync all my stuff.
Yeah, it's so good.
And so like you can start with recording audio and not have to worry about syncing in post.
Yeah.
Just use it as an element, almost like a song, almost like the lyrics of a song.
Yeah.
If you think of it that way, and you just pick music that's got no lyrics in it, and it's a great way to just, add an extra layer of personality, storytelling, etc. So the film can kind of take that next level up. And then once you've got that sorted, you can look at syncing audio to video and all that sort of stuff. But that's for another trip down the road later. As we kind of round out the show now, I guess any kind of like final thoughts on adding video to your photography business as an extra. So definitely with the caveat with the caveat being that it's a photo, like you're a photographer first and foremost, but you have video as an offering in your business. Like,
sure. Any
sort of like final lessons for photographers who want to take that step, why they should, things to think of, etc.
Sure. Yeah. So first thing I was going to say way earlier on, I forgot to say was, a big benefit to adding video for photographers is that it brings a lot more business my way as well, because a lot of people don't want to deal with two companies. They just want to deal with one company that can do both. Yep. So the fact that I can do both gets me weddings that I might not have gotten if they had to get, because they'll go to someone else that can do both. So I think it's a really good progression that you can do that if you want to get more bookings in general. But I think the most important thing is just being really transparent and telling them exactly what they're going to get, and even under promising. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
And just not trying to sell something that you can't do. Basically, if you're getting, half the reason I try and meet all my clients in person is so I can really get a feel for what they want and to make sure I can do it and I'm feeling comfortable with it. But if you know, if I'm getting a sense that they want something different, like, you know, they want something more along the lines of you doing it separately, then I'll just recommend you, you know, because we do a different product.
Yeah.
It's a different, you know, if they have the budget for both of us, then they may as well get it, you know what I mean? And the if you don't do that, you know, and you promise you're going to deliver something and it's not what it's supposed to be, the repercussions of getting a bad review or like something like that is much worse than getting an extra couple of grand for a day.
Yeah. I think the thing for photographers to think about is to separate the kind of the skill level and the kind of level of your offering of photo and video.
Yeah.
Separate those out.
Exactly.
Because if you're an amazing photographer and you want to bring in video, you're never going to get the video up to where you are.
It's just a little add-on.
It's a little add-on, and you just think of it like that.
And that's exactly how I sell it when I'm with the couple.
Yeah.
You know, I say, it's just, you know, this is exactly how I say it pretty much. I'm like, it's just a really nice little film. You know, we put some nice music over it. If we can get audio, I'll do that as well, but I can't always promise that.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a really basic, really nice little film that you can have. You know, it's really similar to the photos, but, you know, it just tells a little bit more of a story. You know, and it's cheaper for you guys because, you know, I'm already there on the day and, you know, you're not having to pay another crew to come in. But yeah, if you're after the more sort of intensive, whole different kind of view to the photos, then I would definitely recommend, you know, this person or that person.
Or just a video-centric team. It's a whole different sort of offering.
But yeah, selling it, you know, when I sell it like that, and then when I deliver what I deliver, they're like, holy shit, that is way better than what I thought it was going to be, you know? Yeah. And that's when you get people recommending you to their friends and their family. So I think it's definitely important just to kind of refine your skills, make sure and the most important thing is making sure your photo isn't you're not losing anything in your photo. You know, you want to make sure that level of quality remains the same.
Absolutely.
You know, once you start sacrificing that, then just stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Awesome. Well, I think that's a great place for us to finish up.
Sweet.
Thanks so much for coming, man.
Cool,
that was
man.
Great. I really enjoyed it.
It's good fun.
It was good to have you on in terms of keeping me on the tracks of not getting too down any rabbit holes of getting too complicated on things, because that's definitely what the pit hole I fell into when I did my workshop years ago.
I think videos, because video, naturally it's much more complicated in terms of like technical stuff than photo. Like photo is more of a kind of, I don't know, it's much more freer. Like you don't have to be as like technically adept to do photo.
You're certainly not as encumbered with gear. And
exactly.
In terms of the video stuff I do,
it's a
lot more gear, a lot more
world.
stuff, different elements. You got to think about audio and all sorts of stuff. So, but you don't have to do that right off the bat. So, that was cool. It was great convo, man. And if anyone has any other questions or anything we didn't cover or didn't clarify, let us know below, and I'll do my best to clarify anything that was missed. And that's gonna do us. Cool. Thanks, man. Alrighty.
Cool.
See ya.
That was cool.
Done. Awesome.